Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so audio seems to be coming through. Let's keep an eye on the chat, see if this is working. Manic, hey Manic, how's it going? Hello, hello indeed. You can let me know how the audio is coming through, folks. As always, make sure that you can hear me, and we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to find their way in. Hella Croissant. That's a great name. Hello. Hella Croissant. What a great name. Excellent. Okay, folks. What we got here? A couple of people over there on YouTube, a couple of people here on Twitch. All right, folks, welcome back to another Firestorm Studios live stream. My name is Pat, and today I'm actually covering for Heather while she's on holiday. And we're going to use this time as productively as we can, and we're going to try and finish off the Kelpie that we started on Monday. And the Kelpie that we're creating here has been concepted by our very own Peter Ocampo. You can make sure to check him out over on the Firestorm Discord as well as the Firestorm streams. So, between streams, I have worked on the anatomy of the horse body for, I don't know, I'm going to say maybe an extra couple of hours all in, just to get the body to a little bit more of a final state, and that's mainly so that we can just focus on the head area of our Kelpie, because that's really the important part at this stage. You can see that at the last stream we got pretty far. We did block out a rough mane, but I think for this I'm going to start that again and do it a little bit more carefully this time around. So let me just jump over to a more basic material here, and make sure I'm in the right poly group or subtool here. So before we start, I think I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping because things are a little bit messy over here. So we have our head muscles, that's fine. We've got the cranium for the skull, we've got our eyes, we've got the mandible, ears, body, but we've got some random extra parts here I want to clean up. So let's take a look at those. That's the tail and part of this part of the body that I've created. So I think what I'll do here is I'm going to merge the body down like so. And I think I'm not sure if I want to keep the tail or not. It's a bit too chaotic for me at the moment, so I'll just leave it in as a stand-in. And we've got our ground. We also have a whip here of our horse, which I'm going to delete. I'm going to hit delete all with that, which is going to delete the folder and the subtool that's contained within it. Right? Okay, that's better. Let's do a quick save, and then we can start working on the head. And as always, folks, if you have any queries or questions regarding the project that we're currently working on at the moment, or for anything else to do with Firestorm, feel free to ask away in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer those questions for you. I'm going to hide my ground plate here. And as always, folks, do let us know how you're doing on this fine day. We're in the second half of the week. We're really close to the weekend, so I'm sure many of you are looking forward to that. I know I am. I have a couple of days worth of chores to do, so I can't wait for that. Whether the weather is good or bad, I'll be clearing things out, you know, adulting at a pro level. All right, let me see here. Now, when we started this, we blocked out the muscles of the face on top of a very rough version of the horse skull, and we made some changes to the teeth to try and bring it more in line with the concept that Peter has created. And we can probably do a few other parts here. Maybe need to make a little bit of a change to the lower mandible here. Just line those teeth up a bit more. I'm going to smooth this out a little. There we go. Where is my lovely Heather? I am afraid Heather is on holiday, so you are stuck with me. So, not to worry, folks. I am only here this week. Normal service will be resumed next. Hey, Dennis. Good to see you. Just going to bring my pressure sensitivity back because I lost it for a moment there. And just quickly outline the teeth. Now, we will eventually be merging all of the cranium and the musculature for the horse's face. We will be merging that together so that we can create the kind of blend between the kind of more skeletal parts and the more emaciated parts of the Kelpie. Eventually, but for now, we're just going to keep them separate so that we can work on them. You can see that's just terrifying. As soon as you take the eyelids off of anything, it's either going to be really funny or it's going to look really scary. That's what I always find. There's no in between. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to inflate the masseters ever so slightly. To kind of plump them up a bit. I'm going to give that nice strong jaw that horses tend to have. And I know obviously we're doing a Kelpie, but in Scottish folklore, the Kelpie takes on the form of a horse and is sometimes known as a water horse. And they're not good spirits. They drag you to your death under the water if you go near them. So, all right. What have I done? What's this? Oh, I appear to have combined. Oh, okay. So this is quite good. Switching to YouTube, Twitch is annoying. What's happening with Twitch, Manic? Is it breaking on you? So, what I've accidentally done here, and I didn't notice this until now, is I have merged part of the cranium, the inside of the cranium, to the head muscles, which I did not want to do. So I'm going to take these, and we're going to make sure that we get everything that we need. Yeah, we're going to take this, mask it out, and then invert that mask and choose split unmasked points. So now I have that interior part of the mouth all on its lonesome, and we can now merge these down like so, hit Control W, and then bring them back into one mesh, just to keep things a little bit cleaner. Another artist. Hello, I'm here. Hello, another artist. Thank you very much for popping in. Yeah, it just keeps stuttering for me. Oh, okay. Let me just check the bandwidth settings haven't changed. Saliha Kamran, thank you very much for the subscription. Thank you very much indeed. I hope I pronounced your name correctly there. Or at least got somewhere close. All right. Let's bring back the body here. Well, and I think we're just going to dive straight into this now because I'm quite happy with the overall shape. But one thing I do want to do is I don't want to have the creature's mouth closed. I'd like to have it a little bit more open. And that's going to let me take some of this lovely detail that Pete's painted in across the nose, all these kind of stretched pieces of skin across the way. That's going to be really cool if we could maybe add a bit of that onto the face as well. And I think before we do any... You got it okay. Perfect. Good to know. Good to hear. What we can do as well is we can actually start adding a little bit more skin over the top of this before we start blending it. So I want to do this. Let me see. I think we're just going to do this with a Z-sphere. That's going to give me a decent amount of control as where I put some of this shape. So we're going to append a Z-sphere in. And if ZBrush would stop behaving badly, I try to move things, we can get this going. Move this towards the nose area, and we're not going to be using any kind of symmetry here. And there's many different ways you could do this, but from a teaching perspective and kind of demonstration purposes, this is probably one of the clearest ways to showcase how to create this kind of bridging geometry in ZBrush. So I can append in a Z-sphere, go into the draw mode, and I can just drag this out. Then I can move that across to where I need it to go. Across the way. This. And it doesn't matter if it overlaps or it's kind of sticking in a particular place, because we can go in and edit this. Scale this down a bit. I don't want it to be perfectly even either, at either side, because you're looking for randomization. Go back into the draw mode, and I can just tap along the sphere. It's going to allow me to scale down in the middle, various points. Now, you don't necessarily need to do that, because if you when you convert it to geometry, you could very easily just scale that down and sculpt it into the shape you need. But the reason I want to do that is I want to go back to draw here. I want to draw out another Z-sphere and drag it across to another part like that. Add in a few more, bit of a scale, and just start bridging these gaps, blocking out the shapes. And this is why Z-spheres are really kind of handy for this type of thing. It gives you a lot of control that you can change. Quite non-destructive. The one thing I would say is if you are new to using Z-spheres, just take your time with them. You will run into issues where they don't behave the way you're maybe expecting them to, but just keep with them and keep practicing with them. And like I say, take your time. Don't try and rush them, because that's generally when Z-spheres decide to misbehave. And if you make a mistake like I have here, if you go back into draw and hold down the Alt key and tap on it, it will delete a Z-sphere. So I think I'm now going to scale this bit down, scale that part down, and I'm going to add in another Z-sphere here. I'm going to drag that across to the opposite side of the nose. And scale that down as well. Now I'm going to do another one. Hey, Amy. Afternoon to you as well. I hope you're well. Thank you for coming along. So let's get this stretched across like so. Draw in a few more. Move these into position. And this is just for the kind of primary shapes. I'm actually going to do something else for interior. And we'll just do one last addition here and then just tuck that into it. I can see how this looks if I tap the A key, keyboard. That's going to give us a preview. That looks okay, but it's going to let me make some changes, stretch or tighten a few things up. Maybe add a bit more sag in the right direction. Oh, weird. Yeah, looking pretty cool. Going to enhance this part here. Scale that up ever so slightly. There we go. I do hope everyone is having a good afternoon and a good week. Very lovely to have you all here. We've got quite a turnout today, so we really appreciate the support, folks. And I'm going to jump in early here, and because we're on that topic, if you are really interested in supporting Firestorm further, please do check out our Discord and all of our socials. You'll find all the information in the banner at the bottom of this stream. And there's also a QR code there that will take you to our links as well. And if you come and join us over on the Discord, you can ask and share your work. You can ask about your work and share it in a lot of our community channels. It's a really supportive community over there, and I think you'll find yourself quite at home. And you also occasionally will get a chance to hang out with some of the Firestorm streaming team, as well as the rest of the team, because we are normally found in the voice channels fairly regularly from time to time. There we go. Okay. So now that I've got that in place, I'm not going to convert it into a proper piece of geometry quite yet. What I want to do instead is I want to take the cranium here, I'm going to duplicate it. But instead of duplicating it into my subtool palette here, I'm actually going to hit the clone button at the very top of the tool palette, and that's going to copy it into its own subtool list. So this is now completely separate from my other model. And to do this, and the reason I've done this, is I want to use something called Slime Bridge in Zbrush. What this allows me to do is mask out, if I use the mask pen mode, Zbrush will behave, there we go, and I can mask 2 points, like so. I hit the Slime Bridge button, Zbrush will fail to work. Okay, Zbrush, playing, misbehaving with me. Try that again. Increase the... How bizarre. Okay. Try this again. I might not have enough geometry. How odd. Okay, what's normally supposed to happen, folks, is when you mask between 2 different points, Zbrush will create geometry between them, and you can adjust kind of, and it creates kind of almost a sinewy, slimy effect to it. Hence the name Slime Bridge. And I'm going to try it again with a bit more geometry. And it is seemingly not working. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's kind of bizarre. So let me go back to the skull, and I'm going to go into geometry here and choose modify topology. So geometry, modify topology, and I'm just going to hit weld points. Because if you remember at the beginning, we had our two parts of our cranium split apart, but we combined them together. However, when doing that, it's actually split the area. So I had to hit weld points so that when I subdivide it, we don't get a strange line or model. So I'm going to try this again. I'm going to reset and hit clone into a new subtool palette. Hit Control D, delete the lower, and I'm going to try this again. And let's go to Slime Bridge and Slime Bridge. Okay. Doesn't seem to like this geometry, so I'm going to try something else. I'm going to do a fix mesh. And then I'm going to go into Dynamesh and I'm going to re-Dynamesh this. Because it could be to do with the fact that we have Sculptris Pro tessellation on this. So we want to give ourselves a nice clean layout of geometry to work with. So I'm going to do something like this. Hit project, actually we'll take off project and hit Dynamesh. There we go. Smooth this out. And then we'll try again. I'm going to dig into this a bit more. Make a bit more of a valley so that we can bridge across the two gaps a bit easier. Subdivide again. And then hit Slime Bridge. Okay, that's kind of working. I can reduce the amount of bridges. Maybe just one or two, a couple of branches. We can adjust some of these levels. We'll kind of increase the tension a bit and hit Slime Bridge. It should hopefully make it a little bit. There we go. We can adjust and lower these until we get the effect that we're looking for. And you can do this multiple times, and there we go, something like that. So that's kind of cool. I like that. And now I'm going to do another one, the same settings, a little bit further down. I'm going to keep doing that until I kind of just build up different kind of cool layers. Sometimes it's not wanting to work, and that's okay. Go. Doesn't like that. There we go. So now that I've done that, I can just cut this out. So I'll go to my select lasso here, and I'll just remove the areas of the mesh that I don't need. Leave hidden. Deseta 3D, hello, thank you very much for coming along. Welcome back to the stream. And I'm just going to keep removing the parts I don't need. Just cut everything away. Nice and quick. Really hidden. And then we can see if this is going to fit into our mesh. We can append this in. append head muscles. There we go. And then I can take this lower part here, using a large move brush, and start moving this into the mesh and underneath. Just building up another layer underneath the main one. And fill in that gap a little bit. And I'll leave that as a floater, like a floating piece of geometry, for the time being, until I'm ready to merge it in. And I might still not merge it together. I might just leave it as it is. It just adds another area of depth to this. Okay, what's this? I still haven't touched Zbrush, but have had good luck so far with Blender for sculpting. Oh, great! That's cool. Doesn't really matter what you sculpt in, as long as you're having, as long as you're kind of enjoying the process and you're learning something. That's the kind of key factor here. Okay, let's jump ahead now. Let's start to speed up. So I'm going to go into the adaptive skin options for that Z-sphere. I'm going to reduce the Dynamesh resolution. And it's going to do, goodness, play silly. It's going to play silly buggers with me, which we don't want. So we're going to go back in to the Z-sphere and try and see if we can remove some of the troublesome parts of the mesh. There we go. That's better. So because I removed the Dynamesh resolution, it's now switched it into just standard polygons. So I can lower the density of this and give myself something that's going to be far easier to work with. And then I can always turn it into Dynamesh a little bit later on. So we'll do make adaptive skin. And that is going to leave the Z-spheres in there, so we'll remove them. And then if I hit append, in my tool palette here, I'm going to find skin Z-sphere. So I can append that in, and there's the geometry. Now we can just use our move brush to readjust the shape of it and make it fit a bit better. Our skull. Again, we're going to leave this separate piece of geometry for the time being. I'm going to thin out some of these areas just to make it look like it's stretching across. Maybe make a slight move to a change to this, and you can use the move elastic brush for this type of stuff. It gives you a much, you lower the intensity anyway, you can get a gentler movement to a far more organic change. It's really good for things like foliage and gooey parts, really. It's the best way I can describe it. Right. Can't read. Thales196, thank you very much. TT Thales196, thank you very much for the follow. All right. Now, when it comes to the mouth, I'm actually just going to steal. I'm going to steal part of the geometry I've already made on the face here. Mask that off. Invert it. Center it, and then hold Control and click and drag that down. And this isn't actually going to be anatomically correct, I should point out, but we're going to do it anyway because it's a Kelpie. It's not a real horse. So we've got a little bit of, we can do a bit more artistic interpretation of that. So we'll grab the move brush, Make sure we have symmetry on here. Fine. And just start to pull that in a certain direction. Make sure it wraps around. This is another good example of why working with lower resolution meshes is a good idea at this stage. It's going to be much easier to manipulate it around other forms. And also it's giving you less geometry, so you can use something like smooth just to thin it out, then build that and pull it into place where you need it to go. A bit of an inflate, and drag that underneath or over. It really doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. I'm going to put it underneath. Get some layered effects to that. I'm going to do a little bit more adjustment using the move topology brush just to straighten out and make that look like it's stretching. Maybe move it down a bit. And we can work that. Not a huge fan of the way it's wrapping around there, but I'll fix that in a little second. To start putting it together. Because again, I might want to change this. I might want to maybe move this. But at the moment, I'm going to leave it there. The more I look at it, the more it's annoying me. So we'll see. I might get rid of it. Yeah, that's crap. We don't like that. We don't like it. So we will go back to our brush rectangle. We will grab each of these, invert them, hide the neck, and just do an auto groups. And then that's going to allow us to easily delete the part that we don't want. Okay. Let's hide the ears now. And yeah, we're going to leave the mandible free, but everything else is going to get merged together, including the neck and the head and the body. So we will take the head muscles, we're going to move the mandible down, and the ears down. We're going to turn everything off, like so, apart from the bits that we want to combine. Right, these are the parts that we want to keep together. Everything else we will add in at a later stage. So let's take the head muscles, do a merge down, like so. See how that's looking. And then let's bring that into the body. Okay. Now, mask out the neck area. I can start pulling this into the head. You can maybe use something like snake hook here. Start randomizing it a little bit more. I'll bring back the mandible for reference, but I'm only going to start just pulling some of this geometry onto the head. And again, this is where that continuation of the concept comes into when you're modeling it as a 3D character or creature. You know, when you're working from that 2D concept, there's always going to be an adjustment and a change, and it's either going to come from you as the artist, or it's going to come from your supervisor, the art director, maybe even just the client. So the client might greenlight the 2D concept and say that's great, but then once they see it in 3 dimensions, they realize, they go, oh, that's not what they had pictured, and that's where you have to then make the adjustments. So you're going to have to kind of make more adjustments, change it, and tweak it. And this is why it's so important never to be 100% invested in the design that you're creating, because you're just going to be disappointed when it changes. And I say when it changes, not if, when. I've never worked on any project where the concept or the model I created from that concept was a one and done. I'm sure it happens, but I've never had that. I've never ever had that that experience before. And accentuate the jaw a bit here. Really pop that out. And remember, I want to keep a lot of the parts, the kind of the muscular areas, the emaciation, the skeletal features of the face. We want to keep that at this stage. I'm going to go into the, because one of the things as well that I'd like to do is I need to add a tongue in. We don't have a tongue on the concept, but it's something I do want to add into the creature. You can see that I've got the neck protruding now through. I'm going to actually go into Sculptors Pro here, just add some geometry there, because I'm stretching it beyond where it can actually feasibly go. So I'm adding a little bit of extra geometry there so that I can sculpt into it. So, and continue that form detail. So let's I'm going to go in and make a couple of adjustments to the mandible as well. Squack Doodles, thank you very much for the follow. Always appreciated. I am going to widen the jaw here. The lower jaw. It's been bothering me for a while. It just looks way more menacing now that the width is, yeah, that's way better. Much happier with that. So let's now append another Z-sphere. This is going to act as the tongue. So let's move that into position. And let's see, is that, yeah, let's just scale that down ever so slightly. Go into the draw mode. Create one extra Z-sphere, just pull that out, and then we can go in and add a few more. And then we can start shaping the tongue. Maybe need to scale it down a fair bit, just so that it doesn't look ridiculous. Yeah, that's looking okay. And the other thing that I had, kind of idea I had for this is, it was while I was creating it on Monday when we started it. Initially, I had just planned on doing the bust for this, but I found other reference that really inspired me, and I thought, oh, this would be really cool if we just added some extra details to it. And then when I started to look at it and it started to kind of bring everything together, I thought this could make a really cool 3D print. So that's something I'm going to do. I recently I recently spoke with a friend about moving back to doing 3D FDM printing rather than resin printing. And they're going to give me access to one of their older printers so I can kind of try it out again. And I might try seeing how far I can push it with various kind of characters like this that would normally be better suited for resin printing. But okay. So now that that's in place, we'll convert that into adaptive skin really quickly, because we're going to have to do a lot more work on this. So we'll just lower the density, turn it into polygon, and then do make adaptive skin. Jump back to our main subtool and hit append and skin. We'll just get rid of the Z spheres again. And having a bit of problem with Zbrush. It's been misbehaving with its axes at the moment. There we go. Work a bit asymmetrically, make it look a little bit weirder. Mask out. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're only 48 minutes in. That's fine. But we are coming up on the hour, folks. So, you know, if you have any questions or queries about the project or anything to do with the industry, please do feel free to fire a question my way. And as I said, I'll answer it if I can. I know that the streams I do, it's more about kind of just watching through the technique of how I'm approaching these from a kind of colder perspective, you know, and by that I mean just kind of going in blind most of the time and just working through the problem, which is, to be honest, for me, is the most fun part about creativity. And speaking of creativity, actually, speaking to an old friend of mine who, funnily enough, is actually who I started in the industry with 18 years ago. And we were talking about, you know, AI and all this kind of thing, and creativity and things. And we were talking about how creativity is, to put it this way, creativity is what happens between the idea and the execution of that idea. The creativity is in the middle, and it's not a fast process. It can be, obviously, varying levels of it, but it's sometimes going to be quicker than sometimes than it is others. But that part in the middle is your creativity. That's the bit part where you discover things, you find out new techniques, or you go from a rough little doodle on a notepad to a final painting or a full 3D model or a print or a sculpture, you know, physical, doesn't matter. And we're not just talking about digital here, we're talking in general about creativity. So yeah, creativity is what happens between the conception of the idea and the execution of it. So, all right, that's looking kind of cool, kind of evil looking. I like that. So now that we have the body all combined. This is where we got to be brave. You've heard me say it before, folks. We've got to be brave. Just going to take a quick drink, a bit of hydration. So we have to be brave. We're going to have to dynamesh or remesh this together so that we can start sculpting further. And we've kept a mostly symmetrical head for the time being. We will pose the head later on, but just to make my life easier, I've kept the head as straight as possible. So let's now go into, let's turn off symmetry, center our object, and we're going to go into gear options here, go to remesh by union, then go back into that and hit accept. Now I'm going to be able to use the Sculptors Pro mode to very gently go around the model. What happened there? And using the Sculptors Pro, I can start blending these parts together. And I like using this method because it stops me from losing a lot of detail, or there's the potential sometimes to lose detail when you dynamesh everything together. So this gives me just that little bit more control. So we don't have, I'm going to undo those because I think I want to make that, give that a little bit more geometry, those areas. So we're going to lower the brush size. Turn off our polygroups here and we can take a better look at the overall form. See that as I'm blending these parts together, we're starting to have that top section of the horse's head come through a bit more. We can blend more at the top and then we can keep it a bit more skeletal lower down. Turn on the eyeballs, make sure that everything is looking as it should go. And obviously the last thing we're going to do is we will blend that lower mandible in, and that's going to create a much nicer transition here at the jaw. But this is where I might want to add in some more kind of tendril areas, like this, just down in the jaw area because it's open. So what's good about this is I can duplicate this. So I'm just going to duplicate it manually rather than do the weird masking tricks. Scale it up. Rotate it around, and we're just going to adjust our gizmo here. We're just going to flatten that down. Don't need to tell anybody that we've done that. Keep it our secret. It's our little secret that we've done that, and then we can just start to manipulate that a bit more. Grab our move brush and start putting in some that detail, just to kind of break up that harsh shape a little bit. And I'll probably just take an inflate brush over the whole lot without Sculptors Pro on. Inflate that a bit, and then I'll slowly knock it back with a smooth brush. I'll just mirror that across. So I'm going to go mirror, merge into one subtool, going to bring it across to the other side. And then you can slowly start to kind of build those different layers up needed. So let's take a look at the wireframe. Let's get our Sculptris Pro in here. There. Just around the head. And turn it back off, and then we can actually start to sculpt into this a bit more. I'm going to bring my pressure sensitivity back, which is, there we go. If you do lose your pressure sensitivity, I've said this before, if you lose the pressure sensitivity in ZBrush, if you're on Windows, if you hold the Alt key and then press the Tab key on the keyboard, if you've got anything else open on your system, tab along to it, let it open, and then switch back to ZBrush. Okay, and it's going to bring back the pressure sensitivity, reset it without having to close down ZBrush and then reopen it again. Now we can start to add in some more details. Okay, folks, give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to I think what we'll do, folks, is we're at the hour level, so I'll take a little bit of a break and I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Speak to you shortly. All right, folks, and we're back. Okay, now we've added a little bit more form and shape to our kind of creature head, although I didn't have symmetry on when I did it, so I'm going to, in fact, you know what, we're just going to undo that, and then we'll just resculpt it. It's just going to be that little bit easier. Just do the resculpt. And we just want to add a little bit more form that we can see here in the concept. I'm going to bring in these shapes. Just to kind of give that more of that kind of skeletal. Damn, quick break. Yep, just a quick break, folks. I don't, I don't generally take long breaks. It's normally just for me to stretch. And now that we've got these muscular areas now kind of starting to kind of define the shape of our creature, and start breaking these down a bit more. Maybe just build up the form around the brow a bit more, because Pete's done this really lovely thing here with the brows, and the brows have still got that very horse-like feel to them. You know, they almost look quite, humane, and gentle, which I think is really nice, because it's a really good way to kind of pull people in, bring people to the shore to do the evil thing that the Kelpie does. So just start to really define some of these shapes. Take my standard brush now. I'm going to use the standard brush just to kind of add a bit of a peak. I'm just going to lower the resolution there. A nice broad peak, the brow, and then bring that down around the eye socket. Just to help. There we go, that's looking nice and creepy. Switch back over to the damn standard. Use that to carve out this area between the masseter muscle and going up onto the top of the face. Now, you will notice that we're getting a lot of stair stepping, a lot of fragmented kind of looking geometry. That's to do with Sculptris Pro. So we will be fixing that shortly by doing a Z-remesh once I've got a little bit more of these forms in. Look at that. As soon as you add the ears, it just immediately just makes it look so much better. So I think we'll start with our Z-remesher on the ears, which might sound a bit strange because we are going to dynamesh them together and then Z-remesh again, but this will just give us something cleaner to work with when we mesh it together. So we'll go to geometry, Z-remesher, make sure that symmetry's on, and hit Z-remesh. We can then run a quick smooth over the whole surface. So, and take advantage of that clean geo. There we go. And then that's now ready to be combined together. All right, folks, we are at the hour point, which is good because we're about to merge the rest of the head together, then start getting some of the mane into it, and then we can start maybe doing a bit of a quick paint over and kind of blending this all together into the base somehow. I want to fix, before we Z-remesh the horse head, I need to fix the top here. Again, I want this to be more akin to the kind of real life horse rather than kind of more spectral, kind of ghost type. And I didn't want to, see what I really like actually, what I actually really like about Pete's design in particular is the fact that there is no obvious transition where it becomes like peeled skin or damage like that. And I like that because it moves it away from being a zombie horse, right? What we're actually seeing here is this is the form, this is the shape that it takes. It blends from a real life looking horse into something a little bit more sinister and a little bit more creepy. So and that's the difference, folks, that's the difference between kind of just, you know, peeling skin back and actually design, because it shows how much thought Pete has put in to his concept. And I think this is definitely one of those projects that I might continue after after the stream is finished. Because again, we don't want to spend loads and loads of time on small little details with you. Not for this series. This series is about ideation more than anything and being a bit more free with your sculpture. Okay, you know, not worrying if it doesn't really look right or if it's you've maybe not finished a part of it really well. The idea is to keep sculpting and sculpt something every day, you know, and that's what's going to improve your skills more than anything, is just consistency with your sculpting. And it doesn't matter if you're sculpting in ZBrush or in Blender. or in Mudbox. Doesn't matter what tool you're using. If you are using it every day consistently, you're going to get better at it, you're going to get quicker with it, and that's ultimately going to make you a more efficient artist. It will not make you a better artist to learn a tool, but it will make you more efficient at generating your ideas. To become a better artist, you just need to practice. Regardless of the tool that you're using, you just have to practice. And of course, you can improve, you can speed up that practice, if you will, if you were to go for a mentorship. And this is where I do the plug for Firestorm Studios. If you want a mentorship, you can go to our Discord and you can reach out to the people in the Discord and find out more information about our mentorships. Majority of the streamers here also do mentorships, and we also have staff members specific to mentoring on the team. So now I'm just having a bit of fun with this. Just trying to break up the forms of the lower jaw bit. I'm going to go into this tongue actually, just subdivide it a little bit, and let's add a bit more detail to the tongue. I'm going to turn on backface mesh here. Where are we? There it is, backface mask, sorry. And I know I'm not using symmetry here, but I'm okay with that. And I'm just adding some volume on top of the tongue, but I'm not going right to the edge. I'm creating a bit of a lip that goes around the tongue. Okay. Then I can accentuate that with Dam Standard. Just and obviously we've got some kind of weird details, kind of like hanging out the mouth. It could either be it could be detritus from the river. It could be a poor passerby. It could just be drool. We don't know. We don't know, and we don't want to know. Okay. So let's just take, what I'm going to do now actually, I want to take a little bit step back and look at the whole creature. Let's turn on the tail again. See how that's looking. Yeah. I'm liking it. I am really liking that. I think what I might do here though is I might just dynamesh the base. And here's the thing, folks. If you ever get lost or you find that your energy's kind of sapping in a particular area of your model, and you're just not as inspired to work on it at that moment, move on to another part of the model. That's why I always recommend trying to block out the whole creature in one go, or the character in one sitting, so that you've got areas that you can move around to, so that everything again is staying consistent, right? You're being consistent with the model because you're moving around it to keep everything at the same level, which gives you that opportunity to move to another part. If you start to, like I say, you start to flag, maybe feel a bit more, a bit tired working on one particular area. So the reason I've done this is I want to try something actually, if I'm being honest, and I'm not even sure if this is going to work. And that's again what a lot about a lot of these streams are for. It's about trying out things in the software or with your tools that you've maybe not done before. Just try it. That is one of the best things you can do when you are learning 3D and these kind of tools. And again, any software. I'm trying to be quite agnostic here because I don't want people thinking this is only for 3D. This is general advice when it comes to creating art. Okay. Try it out because you will not know unless you try it. I'm going to go into the noise here and I'm going to pick an alpha that I've got, and you can see, you might not be able to see that well, so let me see if I can increase it. Do the color blend. I'm going to increase the strength, so maybe invert that and turn off the basic noise. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to increase the scale a bit, and let's just increase that strength and then hit OK. There we go. So now we've got this kind of cool caustic water effect that our creature is splashing through, that's trotting through, or waiting for. You know, it's waiting for its next victim. Just going to bring some of this stuff together, start bringing it more into the base. Perfect. And if you remember, we actually blended this together, or we combined it in. So let's take our Sculptress Pro here and just blend that in so that we get this kind of cool, almost sticky effect. Yeah. All right. So before we move on, and actually, do you know what we're going to do here? I'm going to fill this hole. This is something that I would recommend if you've been doing a lot of dynameshing, and particularly if you're planning on doing 3D printing with your model. If you find a cavity like this, let's just, let's turn on double here. We have a cavity, and if there's a cavity in your model like that and you don't fix it, if you go to 3D print it, it will probably fail, particularly if you have resin. In fact, if you are printing in resin and you have a cavity like this and you miss it, there's a very good chance that it may have uncured resin inside it, and then over time your model's head will split open because that cavity, because it tries to has to off gas, and it releases a bit of pressure and it can split a model. So be very, very careful. Make sure that your models are fully watertight if you are doing any kind of 3D printing with them. All right, let's fill in that gap, and we're going to do it by appending a sphere. Just going to place that roughly inside the head, hide the jaw, and let's hide the tongue as well. Scale it down. Need to hide the ground. Oh. Sorry, folks. If you can hear something, there is I think there's an argument going on in my street. So I apologize if you hear people yelling. There you go. There's me spilling the tea. There's an argument going on in my street. So we're just going to make that cavity a little bit shallower so it's a bit more print friendly later on. And now that I've done that, I can soften in areas like this. And when we're going to now do a Dynamesh for the body. going to Dynamesh all this together with this kind of gap filler. So we'll merge that down. Let's see, we're currently sitting at about 318,000 points. We'll go into geometry, we'll save before we do. Because you just know that if I don't save this, folks, it's going to crash on us, and that wouldn't be good. We don't want that. So we'll go into Dynamesh, and let's do our picker, drag that over. And you'll notice if I drag it over to the Sculptris Pro section, it's going to give us a higher number. That's the number we want to go for, because that's where all of our detail is stored. The rest of the body here, we could get away with a much lower polygon count. So with that done, I'm going to do subprojection at 0, blur at 0, no project, and hit. And before we do this though, let's do Control click, so that if we do need to project any details, we've got our history state saved. And do Dynamesh, and then we'll get something that looks like this, nice and consistent. And I'm going to just do a quick check over the model, make sure nothing has merged in a particularly damaging way. Make sure that nothing has closed up or ruined the details, and I can step back between the two states as well. So I can do, there we go, you can see the difference. That means that we're not really capturing enough detail here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subdivide it once, turn off Dynamesh, then I'm going to go into Subtool, Project, turn off Color, reduce the blur to 0. I'm going to change my average to 12, and then I'm going to choose Project History. And that state that we saved will now be projected onto our model. And now you can see that while we have some faceting of the model, we can smooth that back. But now we've got all that nice crisp detail that we had around the eyes. And I'm going to hold down my Shift key, go into Smooth, I'm going to put the intensity up to 100. I'm going to go to Brush, Curve, and in Edit Curve, I'm going to hit the Reset button to make that nice and straight. And then I'm going to lower that down to there. And, oh, sorry, folks, the argument is increasing. In the street. And with that, by changing my smooth brush to that level, I can hold down, when I smooth over the model, I can leave it at 100%. Delete or freeze. Oh, yeah, turn off Sculptris Pro, my apologies. Now, when I smooth over the model, it's going to remove any of those facets or those kind of ugly details that we don't want. But it's not going to get rid of any of the form that I've sculpted, okay? And you can even lower the intensity a bit too, if you really want to make sure that you don't accidentally get rid of any of your details. And then when you get to areas like this, which we do need to do quite a lot work to, we can simply go back into the brush options, bring that curve back up, and that's going to bring back stronger effect on our smooth brush. I'm going to turn off the symmetry here because I need to do this manually now. Just work over all the shapes. I'm not planning on kind of going too much further with the body. I quite like the kind of rough and ready approach of it. But anything there where there's a pockmark that's been introduced from the Dynamesh or from Sculptris Pro, which they are bad for doing that, that's the areas I want to fix. You can actually highlight them more by turning on occlusion, which you'll find under Render, Preview AO, Occlusion. I'm just going to drop that intensity a bit. And this is the thing. I'm going to, just to, again, sound like a stuck record here. When you're working with Dynamesh and Sculptris Pro, it's not for final modeling. It's not for final sculpting. It's not for final detailing. It's an ideation tool. It's for blocking out and getting something in place. If you start using it as a final modeling tool, you're going to run into problems when you hit the limit of resolution with it, because you will get that ugly faceting on your model a lot of the time. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and I'm now just going to refine some of the shapes that we had before. Turn off the inclusion here. Just refining some of these areas that I kind of want to be a little bit sharper. If symmetry isn't on, that's okay. I want to do this manually. And that's another good thing as well. If you are sculpting, you're doing studies like anatomy studies or face studies, I really recommend sculpting without symmetry on. It's a very, very good exercise. It hones your observational skills. But it's only the type of thing I would suggest you do when you're doing personal projects. Don't do it in in an industry setting where time is of the essence. Okay. I'm going to take the trim dynamic over some of these shapes, just to knock down the right. And let's take the, I actually got a brush here I'm going to use. Do a little bit of skin folds. I think it's, oh, is it in Creature? Can't remember where it is now. So I might have a brush. I might not, because if I can't find it, well, then we're screwed. So let's do, is it General Sculpting? Is it maybe in here? I don't think it is. Oh, wait a minute. I think it could be, maybe it's in, is it Pablander? Let's see, General Sculpting. It is. Okay. It's a brush by Pablander. Of course it is. Makes the best brushes. So let's just curve it in shapes here and smooth them back. And to do a lot more smoothing here than I thought I would have to. That's my bad. Paying attention. Let's lower that intensity. How are we doing for time? We're at 1 hour and 24. Okay, we are kind of running out of time here. We're running out of time. So we're going to change tactics a little bit. So we obviously still have, we've got a nice Dynamesh body. I'm going to do a save next here. So I'm going to take the lower mandible, bring that up, and we're going to bring the ears up too. And I'm going to blend them both into. So let's take this, do a merge down. And that's going to bring the ears together, and let's merge down the mandible as well. Again, we're going to use the remesh function here. So we're going to go into our gizmo options, remesh by union, making sure that we don't have symmetry on when we do this, because it'll break your model, and go back in, hit accept. Now they're all combined. So if we turn off the wireframe here, I'm actually just going to this. Oh God, that's terrifying. There we go. Control W. There we go. And notice that once I've done that, once I've actually done that remesh function, when I actually hover over the ear, you'll notice that, or sorry, when I select the ear, you'll notice we now have a gap. So what Zbrush has done is it's taken the intersection line there and it's just literally merged it and then removed anything that it didn't need. Which is why all I have to do here now is I can take my smooth brush and I can smooth over that area. You don't need to do Sculptors Pro if you don't want to. It might actually be okay without. I just want to blend it together a bit. Take the skin folds brush and just might not have the but there's a chance that we don't have enough geometry blended together. We don't. So we are going to have to do a little bit of Sculptors Pro here just to blend them in a bit more. There we go. Now if we take our skin folds brush, turn off the Sculptors Pro, we should be able to get something a bit more realistic. There we go. Excellent. So, oh, we're getting somewhere. This is looking really cool now. But let's do the exact same with the lower mandible. We're going to turn on Sculptors Pro because it's not too bad actually. Let's try it without it. Is it going to work for us? Or is it going to look really weird? Ah, it looks weird. Sculptors Pro it is. Blend that together. And once we've actually done the blending, we now have to do a little bit of extra sculpting just to fix again that transition. Okay. Oh, skip until next. This is because I have backface mask on, by the way. Your Sculptors Pro won't work when that's turned on. So I'm going to bring back my reference here and make sure I've got symmetry on, which I do. And now I can start finishing off how that jaw connects the rest of the horse. I'm going to start by adding some more volume to the top part of the lower mandible as it joins where the master muscle is. Okay, we've got that blend, and now I'm going to add a bit of extra weight to the master muscle. I'm going to lower my intensity. I'm just going to add a bit of an overlap here. Smooth it back. Be quite careful because I don't want it to be a really obvious transition. So we're going to add a bit of a corner now to the horse's mouth, like so. Just know that when I say horse, I mean Kelpie. And vice versa. So there we go. You maybe grab a little bit of the move brush and start reshaping this a little bit. Yeah. So another thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at some of my other brushes for kind of creating some cool effects. I've got a burnt skin brush here. And if I wanted to, I can actually start to drag that over the horse. So we wanted to. But I have to do this in a really, you don't just want to go in and do this, okay, because it's not going to look great. Really think about where you're placing this kind of detail. And generally what I like to do with brushes of this type is I'll increase the intensity and I'll just use it to kind of block out a certain area like that around the mouth. And then try and integrate that into the sculpt itself. So once I've got that layer down, I can go into one of my other brushes and I can use that as a guide to start adding some extra, more randomized surface effects to the horse, to the Kelpie, sorry. Okay. Okay. Something like that. Just as an example, folks. Okay. I'm going to grab my damn standard here and just add in some more finer details here. Perfect. All right. Really liking how this is coming together. So let's now take a look at blending other parts together. So we still have this main part across the nose. I don't think I like the mouth ones, so I'm going to get rid of those. Get rid of those. And I'm starting to dislike the ones underneath as well. I'm actually really liking the cleaner, more cavernous look for this. So I think we're going to get rid of that too. And then we're going to take this and blend that in as well. We'll merge that down. And we're going to repeat the same thing, remesh by union. Give it a little bit second. The Boolean operation, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah. So we're getting to a point where it's becoming too high for it to, in polygon count, in order for it to kind of really accurately create the effect. So that could lead to crashes or the mesh just not working the way we want. So we have to be really careful. So I'm going to hit accept, and then this will be the last thing that we blend together. So I'm going to take the Sculptures Pro mode, just blend these. So turn that off, take the inflate brush, and we'll just start inflating some of this detail here, softening it down well at the same time. And then underneath we'll probably we'll paint in that kind of darkness for it. And then once it's blended in, once it's actually kind of blended into the full surface, we can take our other brushes and continue it in so it doesn't just look like it's stuck onto it. Okay. Again, rarely is anything that you do in sculpting or 3D, is it a one and done? You always have to do a little bit of extra. You're going to have to do some extra work to make it look cohesive. And then we can now start maybe pulling in and breaking up the edge of this a bit more. But we are at the higher level of polygons that I'm not overly comfortable with us being this high in a polygon count. So we do want to be very careful with that as well. So what we will have to do shortly is do a Z-remesh and then a projection. Okay. I think I'm going to keep the scale the way it is. Quite like that. can maybe go back into my brushes and maybe grab one of my first sculpting brushes. Just add some low detail into that. Let's just really bring that down. And we're going to do another save, and then we're going to work on the main. All right. So let's just do a little bit of cleanup here. Oh, right, rename the tongue. Got the ground, got the tail, got the eyes, got the body. So we're just going to call that Kelpie. There we go. Tongue on, and get the tongue up to its higher resolution. Still not sure about the tongue, if I'm being honest. Still not sure about it. But with the tongue as well, I'm going to go into the noise, surface noise here. Frame it up. I'm going to take the color blend down to 0 and just increase the strength of that noise and hit OK. And that's going to break up the surface of the tongue a little bit. Okay. So for the main, we've got a couple of options here. We could do a large sheet of hair, or we could just go, excuse me, or we can just go with flats and kind of curved tubes. And I think curved tube is where we're going to go with this. So, and I'm going to do that now because it's going to be easier to apply because we have a single mesh. We don't have any subdivisions, and the curved tubes brush doesn't like subdivisions. So we'll go into curved tube. Let's just do standard curved tube. And although it might be quite nice to have the snap for the, yeah, that might be better. That might be better. Okay. Bear with me, just let me check. That's fine. Okay, so we're going to go into stroke, size, and into the curve modifiers. We're going to choose size. We're just going to adjust curve. So we're going from thicker down to thin. So it does something like that. And that's going to be adjusted depending on our size of our brush. And then I'm going to take the intensity down to about 50. That's going to make this look a lot flatter. All right. And we're going to go from the middle here. This is similar to the way we did it the other night. And I'm just going to change the thickness a bit here. Again, we're not going as far down, but we can extend these once we get them in place. We can start working with them a bit more. Okay. Do it a little bit down the middle as well. Need to do a little bit coming off this other side. Go. Oh, that's not the angle I wanted. Bear with me, folks, sorry. Do this in between now. And now for the head, let's just pop a couple of shorter ones the back of the ear here. And then we'll have this coming forward. Got to get that key, this kind of key one here. Really want that going down over the eye. So maybe do it just another one over the top here, like so. So now that we've got all of the shape, we've got all the shapes that we want in the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the body here, hide the ears, because these are all separate polygroups, and then I'll just go through and remove anything I don't need, like so. Make sure that I've only got the, I don't know what that is, I think that's an extra little part of the main. So I've only got the main sections actually selected here. So now I can select them or mask them out, invert it, and then split them. So they're separate. This is just going to make my life way easier when it comes to adjusting them and moving them around. So there is this little one here. We'll delete that, don't need it. I'll take my inflate brush, the lower, with a lower intensity, and I can now just start inflating mane, just to kind of plump it up where the root is, where it's coming out from the head. Brings it off the surface that little amount. Now, if I take my move brush and I'm going to go into the brush and auto masking settings. So if I go down to auto mask, there's a mask by polygroups. So if I drag that along to 100, whenever I grab a single polygroup, I can only manipulate that polygroup. I can pull that all the way down. Do the same with this one. And just do that for each of these until I get the look that I want. And this is just going to be those main shapes. We can obviously go through and add some more spindly ones if needs be. So, kind of thinner ones. So let's just get this in place. I'll maybe smooth back some of these while we work. And if you are actually if you're still finding it difficult to actually hit the part you want, you can of course still use Control Shift and mask that out so that you're only able to affect that for sure. And that's important when you get to areas where there's a bit of a crossover, like this here. Oh, we'll just move that in a bit. I do like this little emo strand, kind of goth emo strand that he's got. Cool. It'd look cool look for rendering. Yes. Yeah, I think what I normally do with these is I put these through Marmoset for the final presentation renders. That's not something we cover on the stream, but it is something that I tend to do. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to hit Control D to add a bit of a smooth to these. And then I'm going to take that same fur brush, maybe subdivide one more time. And I'm now going to drag that across each one. And see how that looks. I might like it, I might not. It's not bad. I'm going to undo it. There we go. I think what I'd like to do, take the smooth brush here, I'm going to add an alpha to the smooth brush. Just try to randomly smooth out certain areas, really smooth out the parts at the bottom. And then start adding some noise into the shape a bit. And this is just kind of like first pass of the noise, just to break up the shape a bit. Because again, I am planning on 3D printing this at some point, so all this hair will have to be combined into a single piece. Just to make it easier to render. Sorry, to print. You can also go in and choose something like the, where is it? Always forget the name of them. I think it's Spiral. Yes, Spiral brush here. Really lower that intensity. And now I can go through each strand and just tap it ever so slightly. And we will get kind of cool spiral effect. It's just going to break up the shape a bit. Then we can take our brush over it. Oh, I need to reset it. Hold on. Don't know what I did, but I've set the current brush. There we go. Lower that intensity. Maybe even make it a bit larger. Oh, we've lost pressure sensitivity again. So let's just fix that. There we go. And what I might do here as well is I'm going to go back to auto masking and take that down to 0. So now when I sculpt across the surface, sculpt across all the parts. A large brush. And it creates that effect that you've got hair overlapping one another a little bit better. Have the inflate brush and just bring all these together. Okay. Then you would go back with something like the clay tubes brush again, clay tube snap. This time we'll go into the stroke and we're going to adjust the curve fall off so it's quite thin. There's not a huge amount of variation. And now we can go in and add some more finer strands. like I said, it's never a one and done. You're always going to have to go back and add in some more shape. Okay. So I don't want to, obviously, you could spend a lot longer than I am right now, just kind of doing these kind of finer little details, but we're going to leave that where it is, time being. Go. But it's the kind of thing that you could really lose yourself in this, okay? If I switch back over to the hair itself, and I'm just going to delete the lower subdivs just to make my life easier here. Now I can draw I can now potentially just draw that curve onto there. It's going to be a bit harder for it to kind of align, but generally what I would do here is I would probably just do another pass on the body and then move them away in the same kind of instance. Okay, so let's undo that so we can move some of these in like so, make a bit more of a shape for them. Go. All right. So the last thing, we're almost out of time, folks. This is the thing. Let's see if we can do a little bit of color, just a splash of color. So we're going to take our take the kind of concept here, and this will be our starting point. So I'm going to take the monochromatic effect here, and we're just going to go for some darker coloring for the main here. So let's bring that down like so. I'm just going to do RGB 100% fill object. Okay, and then you've got to remember though that actually before we do that, we have to separate out some of the shapes that we've got here. So let's do that. There we go. Hate it when Zbrush does this. Right, mask that, invert, and it's masking everything. Ah, Zbrush, why must you be so difficult sometimes? So let's make the brush smaller, do that, then mask it out, invert it, and we'll just do split unmask points. And then we'll just kind of combine that down with the rest of the main. So we'll merge down. And I think I'm going to merge the tail into that as well, just for ease. There we go. So with that, we're going to take our basic material, we're going to take the black color, just do a fill object, go back to the main horse itself. And for this, I kind of do want to do, well, actually I'm going to take the base here. I'm going to take a green. Oh, dang. Sorry, folks. Bear with me. Surface, noise. Weird. Why did that? Why did it do that? Strange. Too odd for it to do that. Let me see if I can undo that. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an apply to mesh. So to do that, I'm going to have to subdivide my ground quite high and then do apply to mesh. Okay. And then I'm going to take the RGB intensity down and add a green to that ever so slightly. And the RGB intensity being down, if I do fill object, it's just going to tint the ground a bit. Okay. We do the same thing with a horse. So let's bring everything back. Take the ground and smooth it down a bit. There we go. Delete the higher subdivision. Just so Zbrush doesn't crash on me when I try and do this. And that's always a worry. Whenever you're dealing with lots of polygons and you decide to go into the deformation menu and start kind of using some of the sliders, you've got to watch that Zbrush doesn't just crash on you. Okay. So there we go. There's our water. Go in and cut that down. Oh, it's got subdivisions. I'll do that later. So let's focus on the horse here now. I do like this. I've got a reference image here I'm going to use. I can't pull it up onto the stream, but I'm going to bring up my pure ref. Kelpie, reference. So what I kind of want to do actually is go back to the hair here and actually give it a much deeper green, something like this for the main. So we'll do fill object like that, and then we're going to go for a much lighter effect on the whole overall horse. This, the actual body of the Kelpie. Do fill object. There we go. And I think what I'm going to try here, this may or may not work, folks, we'll have to find out. I'm going to duplicate the body of the horse, and we're going to do a Z remesh. So we'll save again. And I'm going to go to geometry, Z remesher. I'm going to change the target polygon count to about 15 and just hit Z remesh. And let's see what it gives us. It might not work for us the way we want, because we may have to go in and be a bit more specific about where the topology is going to be redistributed so that we get a much better looking model. I think it's destroyed. It has. Okay. We don't have time for that, unfortunately. So I'm going to check this, test this, see if it will work. I'm going to go into surface, noise. I'm going to apply the same material that I had on the ground here, but I think before I do that, go to morph target, store a morph target, and I'm aware I'm doing exactly the thing I told you not to do, which is to use your Dynamesh as kind of like a final thing. But this still isn't final to justify it a little bit. It's not completely final yet. So I'm still just kind of at the ideation stage. So with that in mind, I'm now going to go back to surface, into noise, and I'm going to apply the same caustic material I had for my ground. I think this might work quite well. So we're going to get some stretching because we don't have any UVs, right? But it's going to look good from a certain angle, which might be just enough. That might be just what we need for our render or to kind of get it signed off. Okay, I'm going to go with something like this and maybe change the scale a bit. Then hit OK. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose Mask by Noise. We're going to get this effect on the horse. Now, I need to decide which area I want to keep light. So if I do this, it's going to mask out the main body, but keep the caustic part visible and light. So if I go to fill that in with a color, it's not going to look great. So I'm going to invert it, and then I'm going to take a slightly darker approach to the horse, but I'm going to paint it manually. So I'm going to take the color for the mane, change my stroke to spray, the alpha to alpha 8, and I'm going to work my way down. So let's take our RGB intensity down, and in this stroke we're going to change the color to 0, just there we go. So that just makes it green. Increase that. We're going to work our way down. And I wish I could find the artists for this. That I found that I'm kind of pulling a lot of this reference from for the covering is really cool. I couldn't find the name though, so it's the brush here. And I might also switch over to drag rectangle, and that's going to let me be a bit more careful about where I put things. Lower the intensity here. Just build it up. Switch back to the lighter color, lower the intensity again, and really lower that. So now switch to different alpha, a bit sharper. Now just start breaking up that color. And then there's a touch of red, which I quite like, just kind of throughout this, and I'm going to apply that by switching to a drag rectangle and then going to, where is it? This one, alpha 22, really lower that intensity, just start to introduce really some subtle effects. Again, nothing fancy. We're just using the defaults that come with ZBrush. I'm going to add a bit of purple into this. And then we can also paint in shadow. There's nothing wrong with painting a little bit of shadow. Really help sell the illusion. So what I'm going to do is that. Jeez, there we go. See, I was so focused, folks, that frightened the hell out of me. A jump scare on a stream. So that's what we like. I was so locked in there. But thank you very much for the follow. Okay. So we can also maybe lighten up some of the other elements here, just to highlight the teeth a bit. And hopefully the effect that I'm kind of got in my head with the mask works really well here. That's kind of what my hope is. And then before I actually go ahead and take the mask off, I'm going to take another lighter color, lower that in RGB intensity again, and we're going to fill the whole object. And that's just going to help blend all the kind of various patterns that I've made and kind of blend them in to the rest of it. And then for something like the main, we can take that same color, darken it down, and this time I'm going to take an alpha, like alpha 61, and I can just increase the RGB and start adding in a little bit of a gradient. Darker to light, dark to light. I'm not much of a painter, so, or texture artist really, not anymore. But I just generally do enough just to get things working. And then we're just lighten that up again, maybe actually pull from here and just lower that, bring it in bottom. Neil Johnson, thank you very much for the subscription. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you. I might darken it a bit more. Okay. Let's bring back. Let's fix the tongue. Let's give the tongue. We'll maybe make the tongue red, give a bit of contrast on that. We'll just fill that with red. And then maybe take drag rectangle, alpha 22, but this time we're just going to make it, so add green in here. And okay. Add a few more extra little bits. Again, you could go on for ages with this. So now if I go to my masking, that's what I wanted. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert the mask and I'm going to fill it with white. And what you can do is when you're painting in Zbrush, if you have put a mask down like this, you can go into the masking menu, turn off view mask so you can see the whole model, and that's going to allow you to take the color you want and start filling it in, and then it allows you to see more clearly the effect that you're going to get. And that's what I want. Perfect. Then I can do view mask and then invert, and if I really want to, I can just darken up the, just feel like I need to darken the legs a little bit, just to kind of accentuate the, there we go. We can go back to our water, back to the surface noise, and then we can just do mask by noise again, invert it, and then we can darken it up. We'll just fill that with something darker, invert it, then fill it with something brighter. Oh, Right, folks. Well, I think we should probably call it there. We've went over by, well, not by much. We've only went over by about 10 or 11 minutes. So I think we can call that a fairly decent something. It looks okay. It looks okay. We still have the mask on, so I actually might maybe darken this a little bit. Add a bit more green to it. But we'll lower the intensity really low, then just fill the object. Blend it in a bit. And then to maybe kind of create a bit more of a spectral feel to it, we can go into the material wax modifiers and we can increase the strength. And hit OK and then go into render, down to render, where are we? Render properties. We're going to make sure we've got wax preview turned on. And then I will go back into this option and just change the temperature, something quite cold, increase it, and that's going to give us a little bit of this ethereal kind of look to it directly in the Zbrush viewport. Okay, so we're going to save that there, and I guess it just leaves me to say, folks, thank you all very much once again for joining us for another Firestorm Studios live stream. Please be sure to check out all of our social links. You'll find links to our Discord, our Instagram, and our YouTube channel in the banner below the video. And there's also a QR code that's going to make that a bit easier to select as well. So once again, folks, thank you all very much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, your evening, or your morning, wherever you might be. And until next time, folks, take care. Bye for now.